All right. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. Bless up yourself. It's another edition of Ring 10 Wednesdays. And in the house tonight, we have Mr. Matt Farago. He's the president of Ring 10. Rich, the cut man Schwartz, cut man to every fighter you could name. And we have a fighter, a former fighter, and Gregory Towns, who pretty much knows anybody you could name. And we're gonna talk today. I know over time we've talked about we've talked about Ring 10 charities. If you don't know, that's what this show is about. Ring 10 charity. Matt's gonna expand on that some, but we're also gonna talk about starting a union in boxing and how that would help boxers today. Because as we all know, boxing has no checks and balances, and once you're done as a fighter, they show you the door, and you are yesterday's news, and you are today's trash. So Matt, you start it off, and then we'll go to Rich, and then we'll go to brother Towns at the top. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, to make people aware that football is a union, the NFL, baseball is a union, MLB, basketball is a union, golf is a union, tennis is a union, boxing is it's not a union? No, it's not. There is no connection between fighters or promoters or commissions. There is no connection at all. So there are 100 individuals running around, actually 1,000 fighters, if you include fighters, and there is no connection between them. And the promoter, once you can no longer produce, you're of no use. So there's the door. Don't call me, and I won't call you. That's the motto in boxing. If you made money and you were smart, which is a very small percentage of people, if they're money smart with it, maybe you could make it last. The highest majority of the fight look in their wallet when their fight career is over and there's nothing, and they have nothing. And that's the sad part. Ring 10, I built it, Ring 10, to help these guys get back on their feet. I don't hand out money. I don't hand out anything. I try to figure out how I could, as a solution to their problem. Maybe there's a problem getting rent or catching it up, getting it up to date, or maybe getting some kind of medical help. That's what Ring 10 does. Until we could fix the problem of the sport, I still got to deal with what's left over after these guys, after the promoters walk away.
All right, Matt. And you wanted to talk about starting a union in boxing and how that would help the sport and the fighters itself.
Well, I think it would help. I'm hoping it would help the sport itself, but more importantly, it would help the fighters. A union is you stand as one. Isn't that the whole point of a union? Instead of individuals, you stand as one. So if one person needs help, the union steps in. You're doing it wrong. If you're hurting one fighter, you'll hear from the union. Well, right now, the promoters and television and everybody else use and abuse them. They have no recoil. They can't do anything back. What are you going to say? A fighter's going to start to make a big deal. All the promoters will ban him, block him, and he's done. His career is so. I am good in the process of working on building a union for the sport of boxing.
Okay, okay. And Rich, I know you were speaking to me. You said you saw the fights on Sunday, correct?
Yes,
Rich?
there were some pretty. Yeah, there was some pretty good fights coming out of Cleveland, Ohio on Sunday. Unusual. You don't usually see too many big name fights televised on Sunday. It was a pay per view. Of course, that was the main event was this YouTuber who came out of nowhere and it was
Jake Paul.
his fourth pro fight, Jake Paul. And from what I understand, he packed in the arena. There were about 16,000 fans there. Uh, my good buddy Danny Milano worked two main events. He had Ivan Baranchik, who got stopped by Montana Love, also I think from Cleveland. That's his hometown. And he also had he worked the corner of the great Puerto Rican female fighter Amanda Serrano, who's a seven division world champ. In fact, she had a very tough opponent in this Mexican girl named Mercado. The last name was Mercado. And I got to give her a lot of credit because she showed tremendous heart, tremendous courage. She went the distance. Danny called me up after the fight, and he told me that Mercado, in fact, was hospitalized. I think she had a broken, fractured occipital bone on her left cheek area. So she may be out of action for a while.
Okay, now, Matt, I'm gonna bounce it back to you, and you can bounce it back to Rich. No, Rich, you said that she got seriously hurt. I don't know if boxing has anything that would cover her. You know, does boxing have any insurance or anything that would cover her?
Well, I think most commissions require that
Yes.
fighters be covered. There is a limit. There is a maximum. It could be, it could be as much as $50,000. Her medical expenses may be covered. I know in New York State, if you remember correctly, a couple of years ago, the commission demanded that every promoter have at least $1 million catastrophic medical insurance.
I remember that.
Every fighter that's on the undercard, they had to be covered, I think, up to $1 million catastrophic medical insurance. And that put a lot of the small promoters out of business. A lot of them could not promote in New York State. Many of them left, and they started doing shows down in North Carolina, South Carolina, and other states where they don't have that requirement. I mean, it's expensive. I would imagine it's an extra added expense for the promoter
Yes,
to have every fighter covered up to $1 million in medical insurance.
Okay, now Matt, let's just say that, let's say you got the union started. How would that help this young lady who got hurt now?
Well, there would be some kind of insurance policy besides boxing policy. As a union member, you would have some kind of catastrophic insurance or insurance and catastrophic insurance. You're working for you're working for the promoter, and so the promoter should really be liable. I'm doing a job, on a scaffold, and I fall and I permanently break my spine. That facility should be liable. But there should be insurance in place, and the union should step in to ensure that it is done. Unfortunately, boxing does not have a union, and in the case of Gerald McClellan and Pritchard Colon, when they're damaged, they'll maybe pay for the immediate medical attention, but then they usually walk away. Nobody's liable anymore. And this guy is like Pritchard Colon, really brain damage. Joe McClellan is in very bad shape, all in a professional fight, all on TV, and everybody walks away. That's what I'm trying to stop, and that's what I'm trying to fix.
But I'm gonna swing it back to you in a second. But Brother Gregory,
You,
can you hear me?
I can hear you, man.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead and. Okay, good. Go ahead and introduce yourself, because I know you're a former fighter and you have an opinion on this. So, go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then tell us of a time that you might have been hurt in the ring, and if you were covered by any insurance that boxing had, and if there was a union, how would that benefit you?
Yeah. My name is Greg. I'm a retired professional prize fighter. You know what I mean? Just listening to Matt and Rich talk about the unions and stuff, it just reminds me of what a awesome organization Ring 10 is. For helping different fighters. And I'm not rich by no means, but I always try to donate what I can. The thing is, it brings me back to a lot of times when I was hurt in the ring. Back in the days when I didn't have any insurance, broken jaws and torn rotator cuffs. There was really no outlet to help the fighters to pay doctor's bills. And it's paid for actually everyday kind of expenses that you need when you're hurting like that. It reminds me of a story, man, of a ex-fighter that I know, old school fighter that had a career, totally back in the day, and now he's they got like 20% sight in one of his eyes. He's he basically lives in a efficiency apartment. I think officially with everything in the same room. I mean, honestly, not a sad and bitter guy though. Not a sad and bitter guy. And I was telling someone that when you talk to this guy, the first thing he does is he pulls out this clipping of himself that when he was in his prime. And I was like, this guy is struggling so so much just with just everyday expenses like rent and food and and when you talk about a union that fighters can pay into to take care of guys that give their blood, sweat, and tears to the game, you know what I'm saying? I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. To kind of look out for guys that give their heart to the game and end up with all kinds of medical issues that they got to deal with, and
Sir, now, Rich, as a cut man, you've seen a lot of injured fighters and so forth. Tell us, like maybe I guess a story you might know of someone that you worked with, and just how they got hurt, and how they would have benefited if boxing had a union.
Well, I'm thinking about a guy that Ring 10 helped out that was injured fighting down in Mexico. He had bleeding on the brain. And as a result of his last fight, and someone put him in touch with Ring 10. He called me up one evening and introduced himself and told me he had fought in Mexico and had bleeding on the brain, and he came from that small country in South America, Guyana. It's the only country in all of South America. The official language is English. Fellow's name was Clive Atwell. Had a very, very, very good record as a pro fighter, and he did undergo surgery in his country. He had a section of his skull had been removed in order to relieve pressure on the brain, and something happened where the piece of skull was discarded, and all they could do was cover up the opening in his skull with a flap of skin from his scalp. And he came to the United States with his wife. He was trying to raise $26,000. He says he needed for the surgery, and he didn't have it. And somebody put him in touch with Ring 10. He called me up, and I told him, gee whiz, tomorrow night we're having our monthly Ring 10 meeting up in the Bronx. I said, why don't you come to the meeting with your wife, and I'll introduce you to the members of the of Ring 10. And that's what he did. He came with his wife and another woman. I introduced him. He got up and he relayed the story to the members. And then Matt, at the end of the meeting, I'll never forget this. At the end of the meeting, we walked out to the parking lot of the restaurant in the Bronx. Matt went to his automobile. He popped open the trunk. He took out a cardboard box, and inside the cardboard box, he took out what was some kind of a mesh. And he said to Clive, he says, this is the type of material that the surgeons would use to patch up, to fill up that empty space in your skull. And Matt took it from there. Matt got hold of the surgeons. He had the surgery taken care of pro bono. And Clive Atwell thanked Matt. I mean, Matt was the guy that set this whole thing up. The surgery did not cost him a penny. It was done pro bono. He went back to his home country. And, I mean, he stays in touch with us till this day, and thankful that, somebody was able to step in and help him. Because he told me that if he had not gotten the surgery done, they told him that, it was very dangerous to continue living in that condition with that piece of skull removed. So this is just one incident. I mean, it wasn't a simple cut over the eye. It wasn't a bloody nose. It wasn't a swollen cheek. this was a serious injury, and he told me that everybody walked away from him. The guys that managed him after he got injury, they just distanced themselves from him, and that was it.
Yeah, that's every time. Wow, every time I hear that, it still affects me the same way.
You got to
Wow, man.
understand
Now,
that
Matt.
Matt was in that business. Matt just didn't happen to have that match in the trunk of his car. Matt, why don't you tell Troy what you were doing as to earn a livelihood outside of the ring?
Well, I was selling medical implants and I was doing a lot of craniofacial. And when he told me and explained to me, and then he showed me on his where the hole was, I was blown away that somebody let him walk out of an operating or a hospital in that condition. If something fell on his head, he could die. He could die right there and bleed
Oh, okay.
internally.
Hold on a second for me, Matt. You telling me that the hospital let him go with a hole in his head,
Yeah.
brother?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Where he had
That's
to fight surgery, they closed him up. They closed him up to let him heal, but they instead of keeping that piece of skull that they would have placed the hole, instead of keeping it safe, they discarded it. So when it was time to put it in, it was gone, and they didn't have the ability to fix it. And so he made his way. He got comfortable with it, even though it was dangerous. And he made his way to New York, and he made his way to Ring 10. And I mean, it was in the stars. It's got to be something magical that he called me, and I said, "Come with me. I have it in the car. I'll show you what it is. I know the hospital. I know the surgeons. Let's do it." And we had it done. We was scheduled within a couple of weeks, and the surgery went great. And I speak to him every couple of months. He calls me to tell me life's good.
That is wow. That's a blessed, and that's a powerful story, man. What luck. But yeah, wow, man. Okay, I'm gonna take it back to you, brother Greg. I know you heard that story, man. Do you have anything else? Do you have something you want to share about, Well, why don't you talk to us as a pro fighter, man, of how a union would help you, and basically how you and Matt, you could explain, how you would pay into the union.
A lot of these young, and first of all, these young players, pros, not making a lot of money. Some of you guys making $400 a fight. So, and believe it or not, if you play to put around the $400 a round, back in the day, I respect you for that. Maybe a little bit more now, but back then, you even got guys that want to cut up that $400. You know what I mean? And the training, $400. So, like you guys don't have any money. And look, if you're a young pro and you have a fight a 6-rounder, just hypothetically speaking, you fight a 6-rounder, and that 6-round fight, which maybe you get, I'm just guessing on average, $800. Okay, and you sustain a cut over your eye, and you know what I mean. I know there's a lot of horror stories in boxing, but I'm just going back to a small thing like that. You get a cut over your eye, you have to get stitches. You know what I mean? And going to the hospital, just going to the hospital.
Gregory, you covered from that. Greg covered for that fight. That's the only time you are medically covered is if you get hurt in the fight. In the fight, you're covered for all medical expenses. So whenever I got cut in my eyes, I would always go to the hospital. They would always tell me that some nurse is going to stitch me up. And I'd say, no. Get a surgeon here. I want a guy to do it good. But it was all covered by the state insurance. It's when if you're hurt in practice in the gym, you're on your own. You're on your own.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get at too. Is that a lot of these injuries that are not noticeable right away, Matt? You know what I mean? A lot of guys suffer trauma to their brain and junk in sparring, and even in the fight. You come out of a fight and still have, so a lot of these injuries surface later on, and they got to deal with these things later on. You know what I mean? So, a union, I think I just think is an awesome idea, man. You know what I mean? To help out and a lot of times, man, the dudes just. I'm speaking from just strictly a fighter's point of view. A lot of these fighters are not. You know, they don't know about contracts and they don't know legal talk and a lot of that stuff. So, you know, and a lot of these people kind of like that don't know about it. They can end up being like they're getting the short end of the stick later on, even not only financially but due to health concerns, health issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, let me jump in. You know, my signal's kind of weak, so I'm gonna try and get this out as fast as I can. After the fight, right? I know you have a drug test you have to take. You get tested for drugs after the fight. Do they test you for anything else after the fight? You know, do they run an exam on the fighters after the fight?
They not after the fight. They test you before the fight on your urine. They'll do a urine test before the fight, not after the fight.
Okay.
What was the other point?
I think.
Yeah. The other question was you know, do they do an exam on the fighters after the fight?
I think they do. I think they run some kind of test now because guys are getting some guys find out later that they have taken performance enhancing drugs. So I would imagine that some kind of test is being done after the fight. Some guys purses have been known to get held up for something after. I'm not sure. I don't want to be held to that because I'm not sure. But I think somebody's after the fight was tested and was found to have something in the system or whatever. So I'm not sure.
Listen, there's always going to be somebody that's going to try to find a niche to make himself better. That's what they do in boxing because they do. You know, most commissions do a pretty good job of testing before, after, during. The doctors, especially like in New York State, New Jersey, the big states, California, the doctors are going to be right there. If they think there's any kind of problem with you medically after the fight, they're going to watch. They're going to send you to the hospital. The problem is that's not really the problem of the sport. Like I said, CTE, the long-term damage to the brain, doesn't surface until many years later. And the NFL is dealing with this now. As everybody knows, the movie Concussion is a true story. Dr. Bennett Amalu, he has discovered and claimed that CTE is a long-term brain damage done to a football player and a boxer and other sports too that they need to deal with. The problem is we don't have a union, we have no benefits and no retirement plan. So once the fighter stops fighting, he's on his own, and nobody is willing to talk to him, and he fades away.
Mm-hmm.
Matt and Rich and Gregory. Somebody asked in the chat about Errol Spence and his torn retina. Is he covered by boxing? Because I think the whole story is that he got that damage in sparring. So is he covered by boxing?
No, unless you could prove somehow if he prove that it was severed in the fight, caused by the fight. If it happened in practice, I don't know if they could prove it. He went into the fight, and the doctors there put that little beam of light in there. They could see a detached retina, and so they okayed him. So I'm assuming what he's saying is true, that he should be covered if it happened because of the fight. And detached retinas have happened in the fight, i.e., Sugar Ray Leonard had a detached retina from the fight, and he was not able to fight again. Even though they eventually fixed it, he still was not able to fight again.
Well, our own Harold Weston. Harold Weston, his last fight against Tommy Hearns, he had a detached retina. He had to undergo surgery
after the fight. After the fight, it happens. It happens, and he fought again, which is a smart.
Look what happened to Billy Collins when he fought Louis Resto back in, what was it, 1983. His boxing career was over, I think, at the age of 24.
Resto, yep.
He had a torn retina as well, or was it something different?
I think it was. I think it may be a tear in the cornea, but there was damage definitely done to his eyes.
Yeah, and
That's before.
continue to fight after, like Sugar Ray Leonard's the famous one that everyone recites. But a lot of guys, they have different levels of detached retina. Also, you have a partially detached retina, or fully detached retina. So, you know, it depends on the severity of the detachment.
The tear.
The tear.
And
Yeah.
now they could do it literally. When Ray Leonard had it fixed, it was a very big surgery. Now it's a laser beam right through the center of the pupil, right through the eye, and they could melt it back and fuse it back on. Now it's really a very simple, technically, surgery to do now. But they may not.
I hope you're asleep for that.
Because of the insurance.
Mm. Hey Matt, like some of them procedures are covered and some are not, right?
If you're injured in the fight, you break your hand, you break your nose. There's not too many injuries that will happen to a fighter. A football player could break his back, leg, his knees, his elbow, his arm. A fighter, what they see is a broken hand, a broken nose, or a cut face. That's it. You can't tell me he suffered brain damage. Actually, that's not true because Joe McClellan suffered a fight. But the majority, that 90% of the injuries are superficial, meaning a hand, a broken finger, a thumb, a nose, a cut eyes. So it's really there. What you don't see is the underneath, the CTE. That's the thing from all the rounds that he does sparring. All the rounds he does sparring. When people say, hey, Matt, how many fights have you had? I know how many fights. It's under 30 professional fights, maybe 30, 40, 50 amateur. But I tell them jokingly, this is true. I tell them jokingly, I probably had maybe 2,000 or 3,000 fights in my life. And they say, what? How could you have 2,000 or 3,000? Who does that? How could that be? I say, listen, I went to war with champions of the world that used me as a punching bag or tried to use me as a punching bag because they were training for a fight. Don't you dare tell me that was not a fight. Okay? So when I look at the guy and the guy's got 20, 30 pro fights, I know that guy has been in the ring a long time and he's been in a lot more fights than the 20. I don't care what his record is. He's a lot more fights than 20 professional fights.
Right.
Okay. So
you get a guy that if your brain hits your skull, you know what I mean? That's a concussion. So, you get sparring matches, you get concussions in sparring. You know what I mean? You get concussions, working out in the gym. So, I think we lost.
No. He'll be back. Go ahead. But I want to ask a question because you brought something up. I always want to ask about that. I keep hearing people saying that sparring doesn't matter. So sparring does matter when it comes to taking a toll on you and everything else, right, Matt? And Brother Gregory.
Yeah,
100%.
Talking about you have a lot of spots. They used to have what they call the famous Philly. Matt can tell you this. The gym wars.
Yes. Yes.
And when you, like I tell people all the time, Troy, a concussion is only your skull hitting your brain. Now it's just the severity of the concussion, meaning KO is severe concussion. But I'll tell you, I sparred a guy, and this is a personal experience. I sparred a guy, Drake Dotsey, a pro that fought everybody out there. And after the sparring session, I was so discombobulated that I forgot how to tie my own untie my shoes. So this is inspiring. This ain't in a fight with people there. This is in a gym war. So guys are getting hurt in the gym too. You know what I mean? They're not being covered. You know what I mean? I think I can attest to that one. And Richard too.
I don't know how many times concussed in the head, but I just had a routine and I knew how to do it to overbear it. But you fight every day in the gym is 100% a fight. You fight and say, I'll take it easy on you. As soon as that guy hits you on the nose, it's a war. It's a war, and you cannot
We all have
go.
a point. That's true.
It's 100%, or don't even get in the ring. Don't waste my time, and I won't waste your time. So, what advice have you had? Well, like I said, jokingly, I say 2,000 to 3,000, and someday it'll come. People will understand that a lot more. You could play football and do line drills, hitting drills, and push with the hands and catch the ball. They don't hit every day full contact. They don't. They do not. Right? And high school eliminated 5 days a week hitting. Why? What does a boxer do? Every day he spars. Unless it's changed, every day I got in that ring, and that was a fight. That was a fight. Maybe with 2 or 3 sparring partners, even fresher. That's the sport.
Back in the day, they used to say that the fight is the easy part. I mean, the gym and the training in the gym was where the brutal stuff happened. The fight was even as an amateur. I can remember going to the Southern Golden Gloves back as a kid, and the fight was fun part. It was the training, the grueling training and the punches you take, and look. They take it's a big thing about the kids playing football and getting concussions, the pee-wee football. But I won the Junior Olympic Championships when I was 14. I've been fighting since I was 11. So, I've basically been taking punches since I was 11 years old. You know what I mean? Wow. So who's protecting the kids? Talk about the kids protected. Who's protecting them?
Hey, Greg.
That's right now. Okay.
What does that mean? I can take a punch. That means
that's a good question. That's a good question.
You're right.
You got any thoughts on that, Rich?
Take a punch too.
I think Rich wanted to jump in here too, fellas. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I listen. I'm a firm believer. Look, I don't profess to be a boxing trainer. I'm a cup man. I take care of basically this is advanced first aid. But I've seen some video of some guys sparring in the ring recently. This was recently, and I talked to a number of people about it. In fact, I sent them the video, and I was just I was outraged. I was outraged over what I saw, and I couldn't believe that the trainers that were in the gym, these were experienced trainers, guys that train world champions. And from what I saw these guys were sparring. One guy was unleashing bombs. I mean, I'm talking about haymakers. He was hitting this other guy. I mean, they were in the ring. They were wearing headgear. He was hitting these guys with overhand rights and uppercuts. I mean, it was enough almost to take your head right off. And you would think that they were fighting for the gold medal in the Olympic Summer Games. And after about a round, the trainer pulled out his fella that was on the short end and was getting hit. And I mean, to me, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense, because I believe that sparring is a teachable learning situation where you work on those things you don't do well, you try to perfect it. And listen, we all know one of the truism is that the fight is won back in the gym, not under the hot lights. That's the easy part. The hard part is the training. But to me, sparring should be a teachable learning situation where both coaches, they set the atmosphere. They set the terms involved in the sparring. They stop it. They call a timeout. They make corrections. I mean, to go in the ring and spar a 9-minute rounds where each guy is trying to take the other guy's head off, to me is just ridiculous. And I think a lot of these kids are going to wind up hurt. Some of them may never come back to the gym after they get beat up the way they do. And that's my feeling on that. Look, they're wearing headgear, but the headgear doesn't prevent concussions. The headgear is worn mainly to prevent cuts over the eyes. We all know that.
Yep.
And
I know what you all were talking about.
I was outraged.
Go ahead, Rich. Go ahead, Rich. I mean,
it happens. It takes place in a lot of gyms, especially when a guy comes from a different gym in the neighborhood and he shows up. I mean, it's all about bragging rights and ego and about pride. And this is where the CTE begins. This is where it kicks in this early sparring.
Yep.
You hit it right on the head,
Okay.
Rich.
Okay, now you know. Go ahead,
I'm
Gregory. Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, Troy.
Okay, well, let me jump in here real quick, Gregory, because I was going to say, CTE, not everybody in the audience knows what CTE is. So, if anybody wants to break that down, that's good. And we're going to take it back to the unions and how that would help boxing, because it seems to me that you get damaged in sparring, you get damaged, you get damaged in training, outside of sparring before the fight, and you'll definitely get damaged in the fight. So, we got to speak to the importance of really getting this union started. But go ahead and break down what CTE is, gentlemen, because not everybody in the audience knows what that is.
CTE, I'm not an expert in any way, but I've been studying it for years. I have papers written on it. I've met with Dr. Bennett Amalu. I've met with a lot of surgeons on this. CTE, football players sued for and won because the owners kept it quiet. It's called chronic CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So it's constant trauma causing swelling of the brain. And that happened in football players. And the movie Concussion, if anybody ever watches it, it's a great movie and it's a true story. And the surgeon is truly a hero. Came out of the closet and actually said, these guys are suffering from something, and I don't know what it is. Eventually, they called it chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Unfortunately, boxing doesn't get this effect. We are punch drunk, correct? Is that what we are? We are punchy and punch drunk. That's the only problem that happens to a boxer. And unfortunately, it doesn't get near the same respect that the football players get. That's our mission in Ring 10, is to solve that problem and to fix the sport so that we do accept responsibility.
Right, because they are just.
What was that?
No, I was saying that you're right, because there's fighters that suffer from CTE, but there's no outlet for them. Like NFL, because of the the publicity behind the movie and they was forced to address that issue. But unfortunately, there's a lot of different boxing commissions, and it's a struggle. It's a challenge to get everybody on the same page. You know what I mean? To form something, but it's something that needs to be done, and it needs to be done immediately.
Yeah,
it definitely
Troy,
does. Now,
Troy.
Yeah, Rich, go ahead.
I might want to add. You brought up CTE, and I don't know if Matt mentioned this to you, but Matt's brother is a medical doctor who invented a hat that has about a dozen ice packs that are held in place in this cap, and it's put into the refrigerator. It's frozen. I forget exactly what was it called, Matt? What was it called?
Called the cryo. And he focused on the brain damage of boxers because he knew his brother was a boxer. And he said, well, what he thought to himself, when a guy hurts his knee, what's the first thing they do? They put on ice, they press it, and they elevate it. So what do they do when the guy hurts his head? Well, maybe they'll rub ice for 30 seconds and they'll tell him to go take a shower. So he invented this helmet, cold, it could be compressed, and it's made kind of like an icy material, ice compression elevation. And it's called the cryo helmet, and it's available. Every fighter after theoretically should wear it. If I was to fight again, I would buy this thing in a heartbeat, wear every single card.
Okay, now, Matt, why don't you speak on the benefits of that and explain how that would help if you had a swelling in your head or your brain or anything like that? How would that happen? Yeah.
Okay. If you hurt your knee, what's the first thing they do? It's called an acronym ICE, ICE. Ice compression elevation. slow the bleeding down. That's what you want to do when you hurt your elbow, your arm, your back. You want to slow the bleeding down. When you get hurt, the body infuses that area with blood. Okay, so what happens to the brain? The brain is all the micro neurons in the brain are bleeding because you take so many punches to the brain, and we don't do anything. We would take a shower, a hot shower, and then we run home. Okay, and those micro neurons still bleed to the point where they heal themselves. If the fighter put on this micro or this cold helmet, this cryo helmet, after every sparring match, it would reduce the amount of damage that is done long term. It's an amazing idea that nobody thought about it until my younger brother, who is a physician, said, I'm going to invent something, and he did. He invented it. It's out, been on the...
In fact, Troy, Matt gave me one, and this is something that I'd have to say 99% of the boxers and the trainers never saw this item and they never heard about it. And it's something that every fighter should have because, like Matt says, you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and you bang your shin against the bedpost. What's the first thing you do? You go in the refrigerator, you get an ice bag. Ice reduces pain, it reduces swelling, it reduces inflammation. Well, if you're going to put an ice bag on your shin or on your knee, why not put it on your head after sparring 6-7 rounds and taking all those shots to the head, or putting it on your head in the dressing room after a fight, not for 30 seconds or 2 minutes, but you wear it. This cryo helmet has about a dozen ice bags that stick in held in place with Velcro. You place it in a refrigerator, and the day of the sparring, you take it out, and it's put into an insulated bag, a carrying bag that you could take to the gym. But yet, some of these fighters will have 10, 15 pair of trunks. They'll spend their money on fancy robes, but an item like this, it's like a cut man not having an end swell in his bucket. This is something every fighter should have, but not many even know about it.
But Rich, it's not going to.
Okay, now
happen to me, right? That's the fighter's attitude. It's not going to happen to me. It's going to happen to them, but it's not going to happen to me. That's where we have to convince them that it's going to save them down the road, long term.
Okay. Now, Matt, what is the cost of that hat, Matt? And how would you get something like that? Let's say, how would you get it incorporated into boxing? Like the end swell. How would you get that? Out to all the trainers and everybody else who would need it.
Well, I would say, look, most cut men have end swells as part of their equipment. I have right.
I'm talking about the hat, Rich. The hat with
the
ice. Yeah.
The hat sells for. I think it sells for about $89. I don't know where online. I can't tell you right off the top of my head where you can purchase it. Maybe Matt would know, but I know. Is your brother still involved in that cryo helmet?
He is and he's not. So he's the physician that invented it. But he no longer owns it. So I forgot the name of the company. And they did it. But if you go online and you write cryo helmet, you'll see it'll come up. You could buy it anywhere. You could order it anywhere. And every fighter really should have it. Every fighter should have it. Should be common equipment.
Why come like Amaral or there's things they got for football, like for turf toe and stuff like that. These big companies pick up the patent for stuff like that. Why come a big company like Amaral or Nike or any of some of these big companies don't pick up the patent for that and make it available for every young fighter out there? So sometimes this stuff comes down to money. You know what I mean? I think it's comes down to money.
Gregory, what you said is true, and it already is done. It already is done. It is available, and a lot of people do participate in it, and they do use it. But it's not. It's just not, they don't see the damage. They don't see the damage, and it's never going to happen to me. That was my attitude too. My parents used to call me Punchy all the time. They would tell me, take the garbage out, and 30 seconds, 5 minutes later, they like, take the garbage out. And I said, why didn't you tell me to do it? Because I didn't hear it. It didn't comprehend in my brain because my brain was all shattered from all the sparks.
It didn't register, right? It didn't register.
In fact, I used that cryo helmet about a week ago. My wife came down with a tremendous migraine headache, and I had to go looking through the freezer drawer. And sure enough, it was in the freezer drawer. I brought it out. She put it on her head. You know, it goes all the ways back. The ice packs cover the neck area, and there's a strap that goes under the chin. So the only part of the head that's not being covered with cold ice is your face. But everything, the side of the head, the back of the head, the back of the neck, is all covered with ice. And look, ice, like I said, ice relieves, does away with inflammation, and it relieves pain, it relieves swelling, and it's something that every fighter should have in his equipment bag. Really.
Yeah.
Okay, now, Matt, I want to take it back to the union. Let's say that I'm a fighter from. Let's say that I'm a fighter that's from a third world country. Let's say the Philippines or wherever. How would the union help me? Because I'm not from America. So, you know, how would the union help me? Me. Would you have something set up to help all the fighters that come from overseas as well?
Theoretically, that's a tough call. You need going to start in the United States, obviously, because that's the center of boxing. That's the mecca of boxing is the United States, whether it's New York City, Las Vegas, Atlantic City, whatever it is. And then I'm going to branch out. Now, Teamsters, are the Teamsters in Yugoslavia? Probably not. They're not, right? The Teamsters are in the United States. It's a United States union. Could it expand out? Obviously. What's the reason that it wouldn't? Is money. So, listen, I'm not saying we have a solution. I just have a possibility to fix the sport, help the sport, and help the boxers. This is a possible solution to help the boxers, and that would be to unionize them so that they kick in a percentage of their salary. The promoters kick in a percentage of the salary, and the big name broadcasting, you know, NBC and Wide World of Sports, they all kick in and somehow build a fund that can somehow sustain itself over and over and over again. Not going anywhere. It's in a lull right now, but it'll come up. The next time there's another Mike Tyson that forms, the sport's going to go off the charts again. Sports time right now, but it will come back and be as strong as ever, if not stronger than it was. What are we going to do to prepare?
Okay, now everybody on the panel. Peter I think it's Von Axe in the chat, said they sell the cryo helmet at Walmart for $75 plus.
Maybe.
So okay. I think you can buy it there. But you know, the show's about to shut it down in 5 minutes. You know, the next time we come back, I'm going to reach out to you on the back end about some things, Matt. Right?
Sure.
And then we'll see if we get some more information on that cryo helmet. And some more on the union and things of that nature, and Gregory.
If you want, I'll get that on the show with you. I'll just give you.
I will. All right. Well, hold on to that information, man. You know, we'll talk about that on the back end. All right. We'll definitely talk on the back end, and then Rich, I'm gonna have some more questions for you about people you work with, man, because I know as a cut man, you've seen a lot of things, man. I know you can't say everybody's name, but you've definitely seen a lot of things in your journey, right?
Yeah, I just want to, you know, I just like to say in ending that I think a union would benefit everybody. I mean, everybody, they've been talking about this for the last 60, 70 years. I certainly think it is doable. We just have to get, you know, we've got to get the big promoters on board. We've got to get the fighters on board, and the fighters have to they've got to stick together. They got to stand together. Hey, listen, I taught high school health and physical education for 33 years. I coached varsity baseball for a dozen years. I've coached high school varsity basketball. I won a city championship in 1979, going undefeated. Now, I paid into the teachers' pension system. I paid in for 33 years, so I got something out of it. When I retired back in 1995, today I have a decent pension. I'm retired going on 26 years now, but these fighters can't expect a pension if they don't pay into it. Somebody has to put some money in the pot. Okay, they can't expect,
you know what, Rich?
they can't expect a lucrative pension and medical if they don't put anything into it. Now, a fighter who had 5 pro fights can't expect a pension that goes to a guy who fought for 23 years. And there has to be some kind of a system set up. There may be 3 different tiers. Plus, I think a good way of funding and paying for the pension is by increasing the cost of general admission. If you increase the cost of a ticket $3, $4, $5, I don't think the fans are really going to complain about it. But those $3, $4 increase per ticket, that money could all go to funding the pension system for these fighters. And in the long run, everybody would benefit, and it would be the right thing to do.
I agree with you on some of what you were saying, Matt. When it comes to fighters, they will have to be, different tiers, because some fighters will start and then they might get injured real early in their career. So you have to work out a plan for them. Then you have some fighters like that will last in the business 5, 10, 15 years. So of course they're going to be on a different tier, right? Then we have to.
Roberto Duran, who fought in 5 decades.
Right. That's right. The same thing. You can say the same thing for Mike Tyson. Bernard Hopkins. They fought for 3 decades, pretty much, and things of that nature, right? So
Bernard was fighting 1 month shy of 52 years of age. He was fighting elite fighters 1 month shy of 52.
Yeah. And Joe Smith had other plans for Bernard, so he kind of derailed his train.
Look at Saul Manby.
Yes. Yeah. I remember him.
50 years old when he fought in the Bahamas. He was the oldest fighter to fight in a sanctioned boxing match at the age of 60.
I tell you what, gentlemen, I'm gonna call you all up so I can write this down, and we can speak on these things next week. So everybody just give their final thoughts so we can close this out. We're gonna start with you, Brother Gregory, then we're gonna go to Rich, then we're gonna end it with Matt. So go ahead and give your closing thoughts. And if you have anything that you want to promote, where you can be reached on social media, go ahead and give that information out as well.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to, in my closing statement, I just wanted to say that a great way to fund a union would be, if you ever walked into a Home Depot or a CVS, and when you use your credit card, they always ask you if you want to donate $1 to a certain cause. Now, I'm saying when they do the pay-per-view, these guys are making millions and millions of dollars of pay-per-view. Couldn't they put something on there when you order that you want to, or they're doing $1 to ring tender the former union or whatever? I think that'll be a good way to try to get some funding up for the boxing union. And also, real quick, if you enjoy real old school, hard hitting boxing talk, go check out Punching Bag Skunk YouTube channel, because that's what you get over there. I just had thanks for the plug, Troy. I really appreciate the invite, and I really awesome and wonderful to see you, Matt and Rich. That's it.
All right, Gregory. I'll give you a call tomorrow, brother. And Rich, go ahead and give your final thoughts.
Well, I just like to say that we all know 98% of the fighters don't make much money. Most of them leave with less than they came in the sport with. and a union representation with a pension fund, a welfare system, medical insurance would benefit all of them. I think it's time that it gets done. It is doable, and let's do it. Let's try to do it. Let's help out the fighters so that maybe there will never ever have to be a Ring 10 around to pick up, to help these guys out.
That's true.
Okay, Matt, go ahead and give your final thoughts, and then I'll give mine, and we'll say thank you to the audience, and we'll head out.
Well, I'll tell you, I know that Ring 10, when Ring 10 is 100% successful, is with the day that we're out of business, because the sport itself takes care of it, of their players. Does that make sense? So I look forward to the day that I'm out of business with Ring 10, that I don't need to help anybody because the sport itself is helping their own. And that's when I know that we've succeeded. Right now, it hasn't happened yet, but we are making headway. We're becoming a name, and eventually we are going to get attention enough that we're going to draw the big names into it and fix the sport, because nobody sees the fighters that are left by the wayside. And that's the sad part.
Okay, so let me give my final thoughts. I want to thank each of you gentlemen for giving us your time, giving us your knowledge, and giving us your energy. Thank Major Key for the platform. I want to thank everybody in the chat. They gave their time as well and came out. And for those who asked questions, I want to thank you as well. Now, this is, what I'm coming to find out about social media is, and boxing, we just want to stick to boxing. These are the type of talks that we really need, because they give information. We give information, and I'm grateful for each. I'm grateful for everybody that showed up, but I want to see a whole lot more people over here so we can get a whole lot more information out. Because if you can sit around all day and listen to the drama, you can come over here and get some knowledge and really find a way to help boxing and help the fighters themselves, because it makes you feel. It makes you feel good, and a part of you has to say that this is a purpose and is the right thing to do to get the sport where they need to be, because there's some fighter out there that needs your help right now.
Yeah.
There is, whether it be a male, female, there's some fight out there that needs your help. So I just want to say thank you for everybody that came out, and y'all have a blessed day. And we will do this again the last Wednesday of the month, gentlemen. So I'll see you then, and I'm gonna call and bug you and pick your brains for information, man, and throw some thoughts out at you, so you could expect that.
I'm gonna come out like Russell Simmons at the end of the show and tell y'all thank you for coming out. God bless. Have a great night.
Thank you.
So.